Fabulous.
Hi, I'm Paul Luigi, and these are my erotic pasties.
You bastard.
in the bacon, in the bacon, fat, in the bacon, in the bacon, fat, all tastes like bacon, fat, and it all tastes like bacon, in the bacon, in the bacon, in the bacon, fat, in the bacon, in the bacon, fat, all tastes like bacon, and then you put all tastes like bacon, the mince.
Why are you putting mince?
Because then you've got the girth. That's what you're not getting. Girth. That's what you're not getting, Sam. This is what I mean. You've got the girth. That's what you're not getting. Girth. That's what you're not getting, Sam. This is what I mean.
Hello. How are we all doing? My beautiful queechlings? Oh, it's Wednesday, so you know what that means. It's time for a queechy bedtime story. So I hope you're all comfortable. I hope you're all as comfy as I am. I've got my pajamas on. I've got my snuggle hoodie on. I've got my big fuzzy blue monster slippers on. I'm ready. So how's everybody's Wednesday been? I hope you've all had a lovely day. Just 1 second, just let me wet my whistle. Oh, that's a ginormous brew, that. Absolutely ginormous brew.
Oh, bloody hell. Why was that on? I didn't even know that was on. Bloody hell. There we go. Back to normal. Back to normal, everybody. Oh no, Nosset, you didn't get Barry mode by Lizelle, did you? That'll teach you for trying to steal her bum eggs.
Oi! How about your voice? Pick a different one.
Oh, which one do you want then before we start the stream? Can have it on while we do the stream. Which one did you want? Villager. Oh, well, what's the point in that? We're trying to say hello. Pick a different one, Eggy. Pick a different one. Because you won't be able to hear any word that I'm fucking saying. Like, pick a different one. You're not even supposed to be able to use that on this stream. But I'll allow it while I say hello. But you got to pick one where you can actually hear what I'm saying. That's the rule. Well, that's not very nice, is it, Eggy? Is this because of the balm thing? Is that what it is? Are you still sore about the BAP? Pick a different one while we chat for 5 minutes before I start the book. Farty narrator. Okay, we can do farty narrator. Let's do farty narrator. Farty narrator, there we go.
All right. Ooh. Why not? All right. So, pardon me. We got Chaka, Frisky Pin, Gorkrush and Chamberlain, More Combos, Nothing. Ram to one. Let me keep a corn shower. Big one. So how you doing? If I missed any of you, let me know. You know that you're here. I'd say hello. But the boy doesn't always tell me who's here. Sometimes you're there, and I don't even know you're there. Jack out. Look at the size of this brew. Size of this brew. I needed because I've been recording the whole lot, right? So, I just need like a fucking warm brew. You know what I mean? To wet me whistle while I do all these weird fucking things in this book. Oh, God. God, crochet. Thanks. But you any more chat? Yeah, that. I appreciate a man who can appreciate a good beard, the aesthetics, the facial piece. You know what I mean? what I've been recording, Master says, oh well. And for me to know and for you to find out. Oh my god, that breeze amazing. That's amazing. Spectacular. Positively, as Chris Human would say. Oh god. Really thinks of isn't what. Do you know what I think I'm too entertainment? I never thought you could. Beautiful. Beautiful. I do feel Bonita. Do you feel Bonita? I never thought you would be too comfortable. Thought that was a real thing. I think I'm too comfortable. That ain't that a problem. I'm gonna get sweaty. Some rotten boobs. That's what's going on.
Who's this lemon squeezer?
Who's this midnight? Where were we up to? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I remember. So, Horus and the Lunar Wolves had been led to the planet. I mean, by town. And then Erebus. Yeah, the one Erebus basically. With talking shit to nothing was talking shit to Horus, and they goaded him into meeting the moon himself. Why? What we know about me does not trust Erebus at all. He knows that Erebus knows that it was enough. That it was the Anathame blade that was taken, that was stolen from me. Even though they did, well, though Erebus is self-snitched. So that's where we are. The Lord told Abaddon that he doesn't know that something's wrong. So we don't from there either. And then the last thing we had, Horus has picked the other and to be his personal retardancer, his personal historian.
King.
So and he said, you can come to the moon with it and record everything that happens. Oh, do you know what? Nah, yeah, I'm gonna have to. You won. The wall, man. Off though. No, yeah. That way again. Oh, yo, so yeah, I've taken it with him. So that's where we're at. That's where we're at. So,
Bosh. We're back to normal. All right. Should we just get into it then? Should we just get into it? My t-shirt. Slam Queen got it for me. I don't know where she got it from, but she got it for me. I have no idea where she got it from. Right, let's fucking... There we go. That's better. Right. So should we just get straight back into the book then? Yeah, I don't know where she got it from, but she got it for me. And I was gassed about it. Oh yeah, remember to lower the emotes. Fucking hell. What would I do without you, Chaka? Jesus Christ. She's right. She's right. She's right. She's right. When she's right, she's right. What am I doing? Putting that on her. Let's turn him right down. There we go. There we go. All right. So, should we just get fucking straight into it? I won't forget to make the Drag King emote. Don't you fucking worry about it. Don't you worry about that. That'll be front and center tomorrow for tomorrow's stream.
Just in time for Queechy's Gate.
Do you know what I mean? It'll be there. Don't you worry. And you've changed your vote now. You've voted BAP. So you're allowed to use it now, Eggy. So, all yours, mate. You can use it as much as you want now. Democracy! Nah, Jackie, you were right. I would have forgot. I would have completely forgot, because I forget everything. That's how my brain works, or doesn't work. You know what I mean? Eggy, I will get my 5 quid's worth.
Worth every penny. Worth every penny.
Bloody hell. Right, okay. So, False Gods by Graham McNeill, Chapter 5. Our people. A leader. Spear tip. The bridge of the Vengeful Spirit bustled with activity. The business of ferrying troops and war machines back from the surface of Davin complete, and plans now drawn for the extermination of Yugen Temba's rebellious forces. Extermination. That was the word they used. Not subjugation, not pacification. Extermination. And the Legion was more than ready to carry out that sentence. Sleek and deadly warships broke anchor with Davin under the watchful gaze of the master of the fleet, Boas Comemnus. Moving such a fleet even a short distance in formation was no small undertaking. But the ship's masters appointed beneath him knew their trade, and the withdrawal from Davin was accomplished with the precision of a surgeon wielding a scalpel. Not all the expedition fleet vacated Davin's orbit, but enough followed the course of the Vengeful Spirit to ensure that nothing would be able to stand before the Astartes spear tip. The journey was a mercifully short one. Davin's moon, a dirty yellow-brown smudge of reflected light, haloed against the distant red sun. To Boas Comemnus, their destination looked like a terrible, bloated pustule against the heavens. Oh, hang on. Excuse me, sorry. My pizza repeating on me that. Beg my pardon. But I am in your garden. Feverish activity filled the embarkation deck as fitters, deckhands, and mechanicum adepts made last-minute pre-flight checks to the growling stormbirds. Engines flared and strobing arc lights bathed the enormous echoing deck in a pale, washed-out industrial glow. Hatches were slammed shut, arming pins were removed from warheads, and fuel lines were disconnected from rumbling engines. 6 of the monstrous flyers sat hunched at the end of their launch rails, cranes delivering the last of their ordnance payloads, while gunnery servitors calibrated the cannons slung beneath the cockpit. The captains and warriors selected to accompany the War Master's spear tip followed ground crews around the Stormbirds, checking and rechecking their machines. Their lives would soon depend on these aircraft, and no one wanted to wind up dead thanks to something as trivial as a mechanical failure. Along with the Mournival, Luke Cedere, Nero Vipus, and Verilam Moy, together with specialized squads from their companies, would travel to Davin's moon to fight once more in the name of the Imperium. Loken was ready. His mind was full of new and disturbing thoughts. but he pushed them to one side in preparation for the coming fight. Doubt and uncertainty clouded the mind, and an Astartes could afford neither.
Throne, I'm ready for this,
said Torgadon, clearly relishing the prospect of battle. Loken nodded. Something still felt terribly wrong to him, but he too longed for the purity of real combat, the chance to test his warrior skills against a living opponent. Though if their intelligence was correct, all they would be facing was perhaps a 10,000 rebellious army soldiers, no match for even a quarter this many Astartes. The War Master, however, had demanded the utter destruction of Temba's forces, and 5 companies of Astartes, a detachment of Vavarus's Byzant Janizars, and a battle group of Titans from the Legio Mortis were to unleash his fiery wrath. Princeps Esau Ternay had pledged the Dies Irae itself.
I've not seen a gathering of might like this since before Ulanor, said Torgadon. Those rebels on the moon are already good as dead.
Rebels. Who ever thought to hear such a word? Enemies, yes. But rebels? Never. Milkomatic has just followed. Welcome. Welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for the follow. The thought soured his anticipation of battle as they made their way to where Aximand and Abaddon checked the arms inventory of their Stormbird, arguing over which munitions would be best suited to the mission.
I'm telling you, subsonic shells will be better, said Aximand. And what if they have armor like those Interact bastards? Demanded Abaddon. Then we use mass reactive. Tell him, Loken.
Abaddon turned at Loken and Torgadon's approach and nodded curtly.
Aximand's right, Loken said. Supersonic shells will pass through a man before they have time to flatten and create a killing exit wound. You might fire 3 of these through a target and still not put him down.
Just because these last few fights have been against armored warriors, Ezekar wants them, said Aximand. But keep telling him that this battle will be fought against men, no more armored than our own army soldiers. Let's face it, sniggered Torgadon. Ezekar needs all the help he can putting an enemy down. I'll bloody well put you down, Tarek, said Abaddon, his grim exterior finally cracking into a smile. The captain's hair was pulled back in a long scalp lock in preparation for donning his helmet, and Loken could see that he too was fiercely anticipating the coming bloodshed.
Doesn't this bother any of you?
Asked Loken, unable to contain himself any longer.
What?
Asked Aximand.
This,
said Loken, waving an arm around the deck at the preparations for war that were being made all around them.
Don't you realize what we're about to do?
Of course we do, Garvey, bellowed Abaddon. We're going to kill some damned fool that insulted the War Master.
No, said Loken. It's more than that. Don't you see? These people we're gonna kill. They're not some Xeno empire or lost strand of humanity that doesn't want to be brought to compliance. They're ours. It's our people we'll be killing.
The traitors,
said Abaddon, needlessly emphasizing the last word.
That's all there is to it. Don't you see? They have turned their back on the War Master and the Emperor, and for that reason, their lives are forfeit. Come on, Garvey, said Torgadon. You're worrying about nothing.
Amma, and what do we do if it happens again?
The other members of the Mournival looked at one another in puzzlement.
What happens again?
Asked Aximand finally.
What if another world rebels in our wake? And then another after that? This is army. But what happens if Astartes rebel? Would we still take the fight to them?
The 3 of them laughed at that, but Torgadon answered.
You have a fine sense of humor, my brother. You know that could never happen. Unthinkable. And unseemly, said Aximand, his face solemn. What you suggest might be considered treason.
What?
I could report you to the War Master for this sedition.
Aximand, you know I would never.
Torgadon was the first to crack.
Oh, Garvey! You're too easy, he said, and they all laughed. Even Aximan can get you now. Throne, you're so straight up and down. Locum forced a smile and said, You're right. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, said Abaddon. Be ready to kill. The first captain held his hand out into the middle of the group and said, Kill for the living. Kill for the dead, said Aximand, placing his hand on top of Abaddon's. To hell with living and the dead, said Torgadon, following suit. Kill for the War Master. Locum felt a great love for his brothers and nodded, placing his hand into the circle, the confraternity of the Mournival filling him with pride and reassurance. I will kill for the War Master, he promised. Just getting a little bit of me tea. The scale of it took her breath away. Her own vessel boasted 3 embarkation decks, but they were poor things compared to this, capable of handling only skiffs, cutters, and shuttles. To see so much martial power on display was humbling. Hundreds of Astartes surrounded them, standing before their allocated stormbirds, monstrous, fat-bodied flyers with racks of missiles slung under each wing and wide rotary cannons seated in forward pintle mounts. Engines screamed as last-minute adjustments were carried out, and each group of Astartes warriors, massive and powerful, began final weapons checks. I never dreamt it could be like this, said Petronella, watching as the gargantuan blast door at the far end of the launch rails deafeningly rumbled open in preparation for the launch. Through the shimmering integrity field, she could see the leprous glow of Davin's moon against a froth of stars, as blackened jet blast deflectors rose up from the floor on hissing pneumatic pistons. Is that too loud? Here we go. This, said Horus, this is nothing. But Ulanor, 600 vessels anchored above the planet of the green skin. My entire legion went to war that day, girl. We covered the land with our soldiers. Over 2 million army soldiers, 100 titans of the Mechanicum, and all the slaves we freed from the greenskin labor camps. And all led by the Emperor, said Petronella. Yes, said Horus. All led by the Emperor. Did any other legions fight on Ulanor? Gilliman and the Khan. Their legions helped clear the outer systems with diversionary attacks. But my warriors won the day. The best of the best, slogging through blood and dirt. It was I who led the Justaeran spear tip to the final victory. It must have been incredible. It was, agreed Horus. Only Abaddon and I walked away from the fight against the greenskin warlord. He was a tough bastard. But I illuminated him and then threw his body from the highest tower. This was before the Emperor granted you the title of War Master? Asked Petronella, her Nemoquill frantically trying to keep up with Horus's rapid delivery. Yes. And you led this... what did you call it? Spear tip? Yes, a spear tip. A precision strike to tear out the enemy's throat and leave him leaderless and blind. And you'll lead it again here? I will. Is that not a little unusual? What? Someone of such high rank taking to the field of battle. I've had this same discussion with the Mournival, said Horus, ignoring her look of confusion at the term. I am the War Master, and I did not attain such a title by keeping myself away from battle. For men to follow me and obey my orders without question as the Astartes do, they must see that I am right there with them, sharing the danger. How can any warrior trust me to send him into battle if he feels that all I do is sign orders, without appreciating the dangers he must face?
Surely there comes a time when considerations of rank must necessarily remove you from the battlefield. If you were to fall,
I will not.
but if you did,
I will not, repeated Horus, and she could feel the force of his conviction in every syllable. His eyes, always so bright and full of power, met hers, and she felt the light of her belief in him swell until it illuminated her entire body.
I believe you,
She said, "Tell me, would you like to meet the Mournival?"
The what?
Horus smiled. "I'll show you." "Another damned remembrancer," sneered Abaddon, shaking his head as he saw Horus and a woman in a green and red dress enter the embarkation deck. "Bad enough you've got a gaggle of them hanging around you, Loken. But the War Master, it's disgraceful." "Why don't you tell him that yourself?" asked Loken. "I will. Don't worry," said Abaddon. Aximand and Torgadon said nothing, knowing when to leave the first captain to his collar and when to back off. Loken, however, was still relatively new to regular contact with Abaddon, and his anger with him over his defense of Erebus was still raw. "You don't feel the Remembrancer program has any merit at all?" "It's a waste of our time to babysit them. Didn't Lehman Russ say something about giving them all a gun? That sounds a damn sight more sensible to me than having them write stupid poems or paint pictures." "It's not about poems and pictures, Ezekiel. It's about capturing the spirit of the age. It's about a history that we are writing." "We're not here to write history," answered Abaddon. "We're here to make it." "Exactly. And they will tell it." "And what use is that to us?" "Perhaps it's not for us," said Loken. "Do you ever think of that?" "Then who is it for?" demanded Abaddon. "For the generations who come after us," said Loken. "For the Imperium yet to be. You can't imagine the wealth of information the Remembrancers are gathering. Libraries worth of achievements chronicled, galleries worth of art history, countless cities raised for the glory of the Imperium. Thousands of years from now, people will look back at these times, and they will know us and understand the nobility of what we set out to do. Ours will be an age of enlightenment that men will weep to know they were not a part of. All that we have achieved will be celebrated, and people will remember the sons of Horus as the founders of a new age of illumination and progress. Think of that, Ezekiel, the next time you dismiss the Remembrancer so quickly." He locked eyes with Abaddon, daring him to contradict him. The first captain met his gaze and laughed. "Maybe I should get one too. Wouldn't want anyone to forget my name in the future, eh?" Torgadon clapped both of them on the shoulders and said, "No. Who'd want to know about you, Ezekiel? It's me they'll remember. The hero of Spiderland who saved the Emperor's children from certain death at the hands of the Megarachnids. That's a tale worth telling twice, eh, Garvey?" Loken smiled, glad of Tarek's intervention. "The grand tale right enough, Tarek." "Wish it was only twice that we had to hear it," put in Aximand. "I've lost count of how many times I've heard you tell that tale. It's getting to be as bad as that joke you tell about the bear." "Don't," warned Loken, seeing Torgadon about to launch into a rendition of the joke. "All right. So, there was this bear, biggest bear you can imagine, started Targadon, and a hunter. The others didn't give him a chance to continue, bundling him with shouts and whoops of laughter. This is the Mournival, said a powerful voice, and their play fighting ceased immediately. Loken released Targadon from a headlock and straightened before the sound of the War Master's voice. The remainder of the Mournival did likewise, guiltily standing to attention before the commander. The dark-complexioned woman with the black hair and the fanciful dress stood at his side, and though she was tall for a mortal, she still only just reached the lower edges of his chest plate. She stared at them in confusion, no doubt wondering what she had just seen.
Are your companies ready for battle?
Demanded Horus.
Yes, sir,
they chorused. Horus turned to the woman and said,
This is Petronella Vivar of House Carpinus. She is to be my documentarist, and I, unwisely as it seems now, decided it was time for her to meet the Mournival.
The woman took a step towards them and gave an elaborate and uncomfortable-looking curtsy. Horus waited a little behind her. Loken caught the amused glint concealed behind his brusqueness and said,
Well, you're going to introduce us, sir? She can't very well chronicle you without us, can she?
No, Garviel, smiled Horus.
I wouldn't want the Chronicles of Horus to exclude you, would I? Very well. This insolent young pup is Garviel Loken, recently elevated to the lofty position of the Mournival. Next to him is Tarek Targadon, a man who tries to turn everything into a joke, but mostly fails. Aximand is next. Little Horus, we call him, since he is lucky enough to share some of my most handsome features. And finally, we come to Ezekiel Abaddon, captain of my first company.
The same Abaddon from the tower at Ulanor? Asked Petronella, and Abaddon beamed at her recognition.
Yes, the very same, answered Horus. Though, you wouldn't think it to look at him now.
And this is the Mournival.
They are. And for all their damned horseplay, they are invaluable to me. They are a voice of reason in my ear when all around me is confusion. They are as dear to me as my brother Primarchs, and I value their counsel above all others. In them are the humours of choler, phlegm, melancholia, and sanguinity, mixed in exactly the right amount I need to keep me on this side of the angels.
But they're advisors.
Such a term is too bland for the place they have in my heart. Learn this, Petronella Vivar, and your time with me will not have been in vain. Without the Mournival, the office of War Master would be a poor thing indeed.
Horus stepped forward and pulled something from his belt, something with a long strip of parchment drooping from it.
My sons,
said Horus, dropping to one knee and holding the waxen token towards the Mournival.
Would you hear my oath of moment?
Stunned by the magnanimity of such an act, none of the Mournival dared move. The other Astartes on the embarkation deck saw what was happening, and a hush spread throughout the chamber. Even the background noise of the deck seemed to diminish at the incredible sight of the War Master kneeling before his chosen sons. Eventually, Loken reached out a trembling gauntlet and took the seal from the War Master's hand. He glanced over at Targadon and Aximand either side of him, quite dumbfounded by the War Master's humility. Aximand nodded and said, "We will hear your oath, War Master."
And we will witness it.
added Abaddon, unsheathing his sword and holding it out before the War Master. Loken raised the oath paper and read the words the commander had written.
Do you, Horus, accept your role in this? Will you take your vengeance to those who defy you and turn from the glory of all you have helped create? Do you swear that you will leave none alive who stand against the future of humanity? And do you pledge to do honor to the 16th Legion?
Horus looked up into Loken's eyes and removed his gauntlet, clenching his bare fist around the blade Abaddon held out.
On this matter and by this weapon I swear,
said Horus, dragging his hand along the sword blade and opening the flesh of his palm. Loken nodded and handed the wax seal to the War Master as he rose to his feet. Blood welled briefly from the cut, and Horus dipped the oath paper in the clotting red fluid before affixing the oath paper to his breastplate and grinning broadly at them all.
Thank you, my sons,
he said, coming forward to embrace them all one by one. Loken felt his admiration for the War Master fill his heart. All the hurt at their exclusion from his deliberations on the way here forgotten as he held each of them close. How could they have ever doubted him?
Now, we have a war to wage, my sons,
shouted Horus.
What say you?
Lupercal, yelled Loken, punching in the air. The others joined in, and the chant spread until the embarkation deck reverberated with the deafening roars of the sons of Horus. Lupercal! 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 Wet me whistle. The old car penis is not being pronounced differently. I don't care what it is. It might be carpinus, but it's carpinus. That's what it is. That's what it's going to remain. Gotta be carpinus. The old carpinus. The old carpinus. Hey, Martin, how you doing? Give me a sec. Just having a couple of vapes. Of House Carpinus. Later on in the book, there'll be like a character and it'll be like, this is... this is vermicelli. I can't even say it.
This is Vermicelli Renault of House Bicycle Tits.
Right, let's continue. Right. It's proper thrown me off that. Right. Fucking hell. Mine. No way, fake bag. You actually had a car penis. That's amazing. That's amazing. An actual car penis. See, they do exist.
And they said it was just a myth, a legend. And now the car penis has become a reality. Not just for you, fake bag, but for us all.
Right. Fucking hell. I'm just gonna have to finish the tea now. Right. Forget about the car penis. Forget about the bicycle tits. Get in the zone, Jason. Come on now. Story time. Real car penis. Out in the wild. Right. Here we go. It's battle time. Let's go. The Stormbirds launched in sequence. The War Master's bird streaking from its launch rails like a predator unleashed. At intervals of 7 seconds, each Stormbird fired until all 6 were launched. The pilots kept them close to the vengeful spirit, waiting for the remaining assault craft to launch from the other embarkation decks. So far, there had been no sign of the Glory of Terror, Yugen Temba's flagship, or any of the other vessels left behind. But no one was taking any chances that there might be Wolfpack squadrons of cruisers or fighters lurking nearby. Presently, another 12 Stormbirds of the Sons of Horus took up position with the War Master's squadron, as well as 2 belonging to the Word Bearers. The formation complete, the Astartes craft banked sharply, altering course to take them to the surface of Davin's moon. The mighty, cliff-like flanks of the War Master's flagship receded, and, like swarms of bright insects, hundreds of army dropships detached from their bulk transporters, each one carrying 100 armed men. But greatest of all were the lander vessels of the Mechanicum. Vast, monolithic structures as big as city blocks, they resembled snub-nosed tubes fitted with a wealth of heat-resistant technologies and recessed deceleration burners. Inertial dampening fields held their cargo secure, and explosive bolts on internal anti-motion scaffolding were primed to release on impact. In the wake of the militant arm of the launch came the logistics of an invasion. Ammunition carriers, food and water tankers, fuel haulers, and a myriad other support vessels essential for the maintenance of an offensive operation. Such was the proliferation of craft headed for the surface that no one could keep track of them all, not even the bridge crew under Boas Comemnus. And thus, the gold-skinned landing skiff that launched from the civilian bay of the vengeful spirit went unnoticed. The invasion fleet mustered in low orbit, orbital winds clutching at streamers of atmospheric gases and spinning them in lazy coils beneath the vessels. As always, it was the Astartes who led the invasion. The way in was rough. Atmospheric disturbances and storms racked the skies, and the Astartes Stormbirds were tossed like leaves in a hurricane. Loken felt the craft vibrate wildly around him, grateful for the restraint harness that held him fast to his cage seat. His bolter was stowed above him, and there was nothing to do but wait until the Stormbird touched down and the attack began. Excuse me. He slowed his breathing and cleared his mind of all distractions, feeling a hot energy suffuse his limbs as his armor prepared his metabolism for imminent battle. The warriors of Nero Vipas's Locaster squad and Breakspur squad surrounded him, immobile, yet representing the peak of humanity's martial prowess. He loved them all dearly and knew that they would not let him down. Their conduct on murder and Zenobia had been exemplary, and many of the newly elevated novitiates had been bloodied on those desperate battlefields. His company was battle-tested and sure.
Garviel,
said Vipas over the interarmor link.
there's something you should hear. What is it?
Asked Loken, detecting a tone of warning in his friend's voice.
Switch to channel 7.
Said Vipas.
I've I've isolated it from the men, but I think you ought to hear this.
Loken switched internal channels, hearing nothing but a wash of grainy static, warbling, and constant pops and crackles punctuated the hiss, but he could hear nothing else.
I don't hear anything. Wait, you will.
Promised Vipus. Loken concentrated, listening for whatever Nero was hearing. And then he heard it. Faint, as though coming from somewhere impossibly far away, was a voice. A gargling, wet voice.
In the ways of man, folly, seek, doom of all things, in death and rebirth shall mankind live forever.
Though he was not built to feel fear, Loken was suddenly and horribly reminded of the approach to the Whisperheads, where the air had been thick with the taunting hiss of the thing called Samus.
Oh no,
Whispered Loken, as the watery, rasping voice came again. Loken hammered his fist against the release bolt on his cage seat and rose to his feet, swaying slightly as he felt a strange nausea cramp his belly. His gen-hanced body allowed him to compensate for the wild motion of the Stormbird, and he made his way swiftly along the ribbed decking towards the pilot's compartment, determined that they wouldn't walk blind into the same horror as had been waiting for them on 6319. He pulled open the hatch where the flight officers and hardwired pilots fought to bring them in through the swirling yellow storm clouds. He could hear the same repeated phrase coming over the internal speakers here.
where's it coming from?
He demanded. The nearest flight officer turned and said, "It's a Vox. Plain and simple, but... It's coming from a ship, Vox," said the man, pointing at a wavering green waveform on the waterfall display before him. "From the patterning, it's one of ours, and it's a powerful one. Transmitter designed for intership communication between fleets."
It's an actual Vox transmission,
said Loken, relieved it wasn't ghost chatter, like the hateful voice of Samus. "Seems to be, but a ship's Vox unit that size shouldn't be anywhere near the surface of a planet. Ships that big don't come this far down into the atmosphere. Leastways, if they want to keep flying, they don't."
Can you jam it?
"We could try. Like I said, it's a powerful signal. It'd burn through our jamming pretty quickly."
You trace where it's coming from?
The flight officer nodded. "Yep, that won't be a problem. A signal that powerful we could have traced from orbit."
Then why didn't you?
"Wasn't there before," protested the officer. "Only started once we hit the ionosphere." Loken nodded.
Jam it as best you can and find the source.
He turned back to the crew compartment, unsettled by the uncanny similarities between this development and the approach to the Whisperheads. Too similar to be accidental, he thought. He opened a channel to the other members of the Mournival, receiving confirmation that the signal was being heard throughout the spear tip.
It's nothing, Loken,
came the voice of the War Master from the Stormbird at the leading edge of the spear tip.
Propaganda. With respect, sir. That's what we thought in the Whisperheads. So, what are you suggesting, Captain Loken? We turn around and head back to Davin. Ignore this stain on my honor?
No, sir, replied Loken.
Just thought we ought to be careful.
Careful, laughed Abaddon, his hard, chthonic laugh grating even over the Vox. We are Astartes. Others should be careful around us.
The first captain is right,
said Horus.
We will lock onto this signal and destroy it. Sir, that might be exactly what our enemies want to try. Then they'll soon realize their error,
snapped Horus, shutting off the connection. Moments later, Loken heard the War Master's orders come through the Vox and felt the deck shift under him, as the Stormbird smoothly changed course like a pack of hunting birds. He made his way back to his cage seat and strapped himself in, suddenly sure that they were walking into a trap. What's going on, Garvey? Asked Vipus.
We're going to destroy that voice,
said Loken, repeating the War Master's orders.
It's nothing, just a Vox transmitter. Propaganda.
I hope that's all it is. So do I, thought Loken. The Stormbird touched down with a hard slam, lurching as its skids hit soft ground and fought for purchase. The harness restraints disengaged and the warriors of Locasta smoothly rose from their cage seats and turned to retrieve their stowed weaponry as the debarking ramp dropped from the rear of the Stormbird. Loken led his men from their transport. Hot steam and noxious fumes fogging the air as the blue glow of the Stormbird's shrieking engines filled the air with noise. He stepped from the hard metal of the ramp and splashed down onto the boggy surface of Davin's moon. His armored weight sank up to mid-calf, and an abominable stench rising from the wet ground underfoot. The Astartes of Locasta and Breakspur dispersed from the Stormbird with expected efficiency, spreading out to form a perimeter and link up with the other squads from the Sons of Horus. The noise of the Stormbirds diminished as their engines spooled down and the blue glow faded from beneath their wings. The billowing clouds of vapor they threw up began to disperse, and Loken had his first view of Davin's moon. Desolate moors stretched out as far as the eye could see, which wasn't very far thanks to the rolling banks of yellow mist clinging to the ground and moist fog that restricted visibility to less than a few hundred meters. The Sons of Horus were forming up and around the magnificent figure of the War Master, ready to move out, and spots of light in the yellow sky announced the imminent arrival of the army dropships.
Nero, get some men forward to scout the edges of the mist,
Loken ordered.
Don't want anything coming at us without prior warning.
Vipus nodded and set about establishing scouting parties as Loken opened a channel to Verulam Moy. Oh, bloody hell. Sorry. You think the boss battle command's bugging out? Yeah, it is bugging out. Let's try it again. Try it again in a bit of time. See what happens. Vipus nodded and set about establishing scouting parties as Loken opened up a channel to Verulam Moy. The captain of the 19th Company had volunteered some of his heavy weapon squads, and Loken knew he could rely on their steady aim and cool heads.
Verulam, make sure your devastators are ready. Enough good fields of fire. You won't get much of a warning through this fog. Indeed, Captain Loken.
replied Moy.
They're deploying as we speak. Good work, Virulum.
He said, shutting off the Vox and studying the landscape in more detail. Wretched bogs and dank fens rendered the landscape a uniform brown and sludgy green, with the occasional blackened and withered tree silhouetted against the sky. Clouds of buzzing insects hovered in thick swarms over the black waters. Loken tasted the atmosphere via his armor's external senses, gagging on the rank smell of excrement and rotten meat. The senses in his armor's helmet quickly filtered them out, but the breath he'd taken told him that the atmosphere was polluted with the residue of decaying matter, as though the ground beneath him was slowly rotting away. He took a few ungainly steps through the swampy ground, each step sending up a bubbling ripple of burps and puffs of noxious gases. As the noise of the stormbirds faded, the silence of the moon became apparent. The only sounds were the splashing of the Astartes through the swampy bogs and the insistent buzz of the insects. Torgadon splashed towards him, his armor stained with mud and slime from the swamps. And even though his helmet obscured his features, Loken could feel his friend's annoyance at this dismal location. "This place reeks worse than the latrines of Ulanor," he said. Loken had to agree with him. A few breaths he'd taken before his armor had isolated him from the atmosphere still lingered in the back of his throat.
What happened here? Wondered Loken. Briefing text didn't say anything about the moon being like this.
What did they say?
Didn't you read them?
Torgadon shrugged. Figured I'd see what kind of place it was once we landed. Loken shook his head, saying,
You'll never make an ultramarine, Tariq.
No danger of that, replied Torgadon. I prefer to form plans as I go, and Gulliman's lot are even more starch-arsed than you. Leaving my cavalier attitude to missions briefings aside, what's this place supposed to look like then?
Supposed to be climatologically similar to Davin, hot and dry. Where we are now should be covered in forests.
So, what happened?
Something bad, said Loken,
staring out into the foggy depths of the moon's marshy landscape.
Something very bad.
Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! We're at part 2. Got to part 2. It's going to take a little drink and a vape break. So, obviously, the people who do know what's going on, don't spoil it in the chat. But for the people who don't know what goes on in this story, what do you think's happening? What do you think's happening from that? So they've got to this moon that Erebus. This is the moon that Erebus basically goaded Horus into going to, leading an attack on. Or at least that's what they think. They think he goaded him into it. And they've got there, and it's supposed to be hot and dry, covered in forests and stuff. And they've got there, and everything's swamp is like a slimy, pus-filled fucking swamp, where everything stinks of shit and rotting meat, basically. And Loken said it feels as if the entire planet is rotting away under his feet. What do you think's happening? What do you think's going on? What do you think's gonna happen? Eggy and Chaki, you're saying you feel like they're walking into a trap. Something's definitely going on. This bit's so sick. Eggy, say good sir, where did you find that fantastic looking water bottle? This bad boy. The old Slam King water bottle. I've actually got Vimto in it at the moment. You know what I mean? The taste of Lancashire. Right there, Terror Trooper's got it right. At the Slam King merch store. There's 2 separate merch stores now. We've got one at Fourth Wall and one at Streamlabs. This one's available at Streamlabs. KUVT, how you doing? You alright? Lancashire, yeah. Vimto's made in Lancashire. The taste of Lancashire. Eggy thinks Abaddon and Erebus are definitely in cahoots with each other. Do you think? It's so interesting, because obviously I know, but it's so interesting to see what you guys think. I'm well interested to know what you think's happening, or where you think this story is gonna go. KU, can't believe Vimto is made by my sworn enemies. It is. Lancashire. Lancashire. The rose is bloody white, not red. You're Yorkshireman. You're from the House of York. Is it York that has the white rose? It is, isn't it? Yorkshire! Do it for Yorkshire! Jacka thinks they want to get rid of Horus. Big H. Worcestershire. KU, we're reading a book, so don't put any spoilers in the chat if you know what happens. No spoilers, because we've got people in the chat that this is their first time ever hearing this story, so no spoilers. If you know, you know, but right, should we continue? Let's continue with False Gods. Part 2. Plague Moon. Chapter 6. Land of Decay. Dead Things. Glory of Terror. Itchy nose, itchy eye. Got an entirely itchy face. The Astartes spread out through the fog, moving as swiftly as the boggy conditions allowed, and following the source of the Vox signal. Horus led from the front, a living god marching tall through the stinking quagmires and rank swamps of Davin's moon, untroubled by the noxious atmosphere. He disdained the wearing of a helmet, his superhuman physique easily able to withstand the airborne poisons. 4 blocks of Astartes marched, phalanx-like, into the mists, with each member of the Mournival leading nearly 200 warriors. Behind them came the soldiers of the Imperial Army, company after company of red-jacketed warriors with gleaming lasguns and silver-tipped lances. Each man was equipped with rebreather apparatus after it was discovered that their mortal constitutions were unable to withstand the moon's toxic atmosphere. Initial landings of armor proved to be disastrous, as tanks sank into the marshland and dropships found themselves caught in the sucking mud. though the greatest of all the engines of war were those that emerged from the Mechanicum landers. Even the Astartes had paused in their advance to watch the descent of the three monstrously huge craft. Slowly dropping through the yellow skies in defiance of gravity like great primeval monoliths, the blackened hulks travelled on smoking pillars of fire as their colossal retros fought to slow them down. Even with such fiery deceleration, the ground shook with the hammer blow of the impacts. Geysers of murky water thrown hundreds of meters into the air along with blinding clouds as the swamps flashed to steam. Massive hatches blew open and the motion-resistant scaffolding fell away as the titans of the Legio Mortis stepped from their landing craft and onto the moon's surface. The Dias Irae led the Death's Head and Zesta Sword, warlord titans with long, fluttering honor rolls hung from their armored thorax. Each thunderous footstep of the mighty titans sent shockwaves through the swamps for kilometers in all directions, their bastion legs sinking several meters through the marshy ground to the bedrock beneath. Their steps churned huge gouts of mud and water, their appearance that of awesome gods of war come to smite the War Master's enemies beneath their mighty tread. Loken watched the arrival of the Titans with a mixture of awe and unease. Awe for the majesty of their colossal appearance, unease for the fact that the War Master felt it necessary to deploy such powerful engines of destruction. Oh, is the boss thing not working? Give me a minute. Are any of them working? Are any of them working? I might have to restart the stream. Not the stream. I might have to restart the Queechy bot. And the sounds are working. Then he starts the fucking thing. Let me know if the free for all works. If it don't work, I'll just disconnect the Queechy bot and reconnect him. And then, I don't know. That usually works, doesn't it? The advance was slow going, trudging through clinging mud and stinking brackish water, all the while unable to see much more than a few dozen meters. The thick fog banks deadened sound such that something close by might be inaudible, while Loken could clearly hear the splash of warriors from Luke Cedere's men far to his right. Of course, he couldn't see them through the yellow mist, so each company kept in regular Vox contact to try and ensure they weren't separating. Loken wasn't sure it was helping, though. Strange groans and hisses like the expelled breath of a corpse bubbled from the ground and blurred shadow forms moved in the mist. Each time he raised his bolter to take aim in readiness, the mist would part, and an armoured figure in the green of the Sons of Horus or the steel grey of the Word-Bearers would be revealed. Erebus had led his warriors to Davin's moon in support of the War Master, and Horus had welcomed their presence. Yeah, the Queechy bot's not working properly, is it? Look. Right, I'll disconnect him. Let's disconnect the Queechy bot. Give it a minute. I'm disconnecting the Queechy bot. There's something ain't right. Give me a minute. Wonder why he's playing up. Wonder why he's messing about. It's not on yet. I've cut the Koichi bot off for a minute. I've just restarted it, so just give me a minute. See what's going on with him. Give him a minute. Right, Koichi bot should be back on now. See if anything works. Feedback. Right, there we go. So he's back on. He's having a hard time holding these alligators down. Because he'd be spending more on spilt liquor. Do you know what I mean? You have to check and see if any of the mini games are working again. Let me know. I'm gonna carry on reading. Right, boss battle. So it started. See what happens. No Bonita. So weird. Why does some of them not work? Sometimes. It's so weird. Do you know what I might have to do? Because I've noticed it is only you. For some reason that doesn't get to use it. That doesn't, like, it picks you and then for some reason you can't use certain commands. I might remove your user from Koichi bot's brain. And then on the next stream when you log in, just see whether it works. See whether it works, like if it has you as a new. It's the tariffs. We'll see in it. Like I reckon I might have to remove you from the list, and then when if you log in tomorrow on tomorrow's stream, it might act as if you're like a new user. Do you know what I mean? And see if that works. But yeah, we'll have to see if this boss battle works. If not, then I have no fucking idea. I just don't know, basically. Oh, it's Nicholas Case as well. He's on the case. Doesn't fucking look like it's working, does it? Hey, Leeds J. Doesn't look like it's working. I don't know why. Fucking bots being shit. His exit interview is going to be savage. It's just, I just don't understand. I don't know, see if that works. If it doesn't, then I'll have to have a look at it tomorrow. The mist gathered in thickness with unsettling speed, slowly swallowing them up until all Loken could see were warriors from his own company. They passed through a dark forest of leafless, dead trees, the bark glistening and wet-looking. Loken paused to examine one, pressing his gauntlet against the tree's surface and grimacing as its bark sloughed off in wet chunks. Writhing maggots and burrowing creatures curled and wriggled within the rotten sapwood.
These trees,
he said. What about them? Asked Vipus.
thought they were dead. But they're not.
No?
They're diseased. Rotten with it.
Vipus shrugged and carried onwards. And once again Loken was struck by the certainty that something terrible had happened here. And looking at the diseased heartwood of the tree, he wasn't sure that it was over. He wiped his stained gauntlet on his leg armor and set off after Vipus. The eerily silent march continued through the fog, and, assisted by the servo muscles of their armor, the Astartes quickly began to outpace the soldiers of the Imperial Army, who were finding the going much more difficult.
Mournival,
said Loken over the intersuit link.
we need to slow our advance. We're leaving too big a gap between ourselves and the army detachments.
Then they need to pick up the pace,
returned Abaddon.
We don't have time to wait for lesser men. We're almost at the source of the Vox.
Lesser men, said Aximand. Careful, Ezekiel. Starting to sound a little bit like Eidolon now.
Eidolon? That fool would have come down here on his own to gain glory,
snarled Abaddon.
Will not be compared to him.
My apologies, Ezekiel. You're obviously nothing like him, deadpanned Aximand. Loken listened with amusement to his fellow Mournival's bantering, which, together with the quiet of Davin's moon, began to reassure him that his concerns over their deployment here might be unfounded. He lifted his armored boot from the swamp and took another step forward, this time feeling something crack under his step. Glancing down, he saw something round and greenish-white bob upwards in the water. Even without turning it over, he could see it was a skull. The paleness of bone wreathed in necrotic strands of rotted flesh and muscle. A pair of shoulders rose up from the depths behind it, the spinal column exposed beneath a layer of bloated green flesh. Loken's lip curled in disgust as the decomposed corpse rolled onto its back, its sightless eye sockets filled with mud and weeds. Even as he saw the rotted cadaver, more bobbed to the surface, no doubt disturbed from their resting places on the bottom of the swamps by the footfalls of the Titans. He called a halt and opened the link to his fellow commanders once again as yet more bodies, hundreds now, floated to the surface of the swamp. Grey and lifeless meat still clung to their bones, and the impacts of the Titans' footfalls gave their dead limbs a horrid animation.
This is Loken, he said. I found some bodies.
Are they Temba's men? Asked Horus.
Can't tell, sir,
answered Loken.
Too badly decomposed. It's hard to tell. I'm checking now.
He slung his bolter and leaned forward, gripping the nearest corpse and lifting it from the water. His bloated, rancid flesh was alive with wriggling motion, burrowing, carrion insects and larvae nesting within it. Sure enough, mouldering scraps of a uniform hung from it, and Loken wiped a smear of mud from its shoulder. Barely legible beneath the scum and filth of the swamps, he found a sewn patch bearing the number 63 emblazoned on the outline of a snarling wolf's head.
Yeah, 63rd Expedition,
confirmed Loken.
The Timbers, but
Loken never finished the sentence, as the bloated body suddenly reached up and fastened its bony fingers around his neck, his eyes filled with lambent green fire.
Oh, shit.
shit! Ooh, here we fucking go.
Loken,
said Horus as the link was suddenly cut off.
Loken.
Something amiss? Asked Targadon.
I don't know yet, Tarek,
answered the War Master. Suddenly, the hard bangs of bolter fire and the whoosh of flame units could be heard from all around them. Second company, shouted Targadon. Stand to, weapons free.
Where's it coming from?
Bellowed Horus. Can't say, replied Targadon. The mist playing merry hell with the acoustics.
Find out,
ordered the War Master. Targadon nodded, demanding contact reports from all companies. Garbled shouts of impossible things came over the link, along with the louder bark of heavy bolter fire. Gunfire sounded to his left, and he spun to face it, his bolter raised before him. He could see nothing but the staccato flashes of weapon fire and the occasional blue streak of a plasma shot. Even the external senses of his armor were unable to penetrate the creeping mist. Sir, I think we... Without warning, the swamp exploded as something vast and bloated erupted from the water before him. His gangrenous, rotten flesh barreled into him, his bulk sufficient to knock him onto his back and into the swamp. Before he went under the dark water, Targadon had the fleeting impression of a yawning mouth filled with hundreds of fangs and a glaucous cyclopean eye beneath a horn of yellowed bone. I don't know. The command net just went crazy, said Moderati Primus Arakan in response to Princeps Ternay's question. The external surveyors had suddenly and shockingly filled with returns that hadn't been there a second ago, and his Princeps had demanded to know what was going on. Well, find out, damn you, ordered Ternay. The War Master's out there. Main guns spooled up and ready to fire, reported Moderati Primus Titus Cassar. We need a damn target first. I'm not about to fire into that mess without knowing what I'm shooting at, said Ternay. If it was army, I'd risk it, but not Astartes. The bridge of the Dias Irae was bathed in a red light. His 3 command officers seated upon their control seats on a raised dais before the green glow of the tactical plot, wired into the very essence of the Titan. They could feel its every motion as though it was their own. Despite the mighty war machine beneath him, Jonah Arukan suddenly felt powerless as this unknown enemy arose to engulf the sons of Horus. Expecting armored opposition and an enemy they could see, they had been little more than a focus for the Imperial forces to rally around so far. For all the Titans' overwhelming superiority in firepower, there was little they could do to aid their fellows. Getting something, reported Cassar. Incoming signal. What is it? I need better information than that, damn you, shouted Ternay. Aerial contact, signals firming up. Fast moving and heading towards us. Well, is it a Stormbird? No, sir. All Stormbirds are accounted for in the deployment zone, and I'm not picking up any military transponder signals. Ternay nodded. Then it's hostile. Do you have a solution, Araken? Oh, thanks, babe. Cheers, babe. Running it now, Princeps. Range 100 meters and closing, said Cassar. God, Emperor, protect us. It's coming right for us. Araken, that's too damn close. Shoot it down. I'm working on it, sir. Work faster. The dense mists made looking through the frontal windshield pointless. Nevertheless, there was an irresistible fascination in looking out at an alien world. Not that there was much, or indeed anything, to see. Thus, Petronella's first impressions upon breaching the upper atmosphere were a disappointment. Having expected exotic vistas of unimaginable alien strangeness. Instead, they had been buffeted by violent storm winds and could see nothing but the yellow skies and banks of fog that seemed to be gathered around another unremarkable patch of brown swampland ahead. Though the War Master had politely but firmly declined her request to travel to the surface with the warriors of the Spear Tip, she'd been sure there was a glint of mischief in his eye. Taking that for a sign of tacit approval, she'd immediately gathered Maggard and her flight crew in the shuttle bay in preparation for descent to the moon below. A gold-skinned landing skiff launched in the wake of the army dropships, losing itself in the mass of assault craft heading to the moon's surface. Unable to keep pace with the invasion force, they had been forced to follow the emission trails and now found themselves circling deep in a soup of impenetrable fog that rendered the ground below virtually invisible. "Getting some returns from up ahead, my lady," said the first officer. "I think it's the Spear Tip." "At last," she said. "Get as close as you can, then set us down. I want to get out of this mist so I can see something worth writing about." "Yes, ma'am." Petronella settled back into her seat as the skiff angled its course towards the source of the surveyor return, irritably altering the position of her restraint harness to try and avoid creasing the folds of her dress. She gave up, deciding that the dress was beyond saving, and returned to her gaze to the windshield as the pilot gave a sudden yell of terror. Hot fear seethed in her veins as the mist before them cleared, and she saw a huge mechanical giant before them, its proportions massive and armored. Saw-toothed bastions and towers filled her vision, massive cannons and a terrible, snarling face of dark iron. "Throne!" cried the pilot, hauling on the controls in a desperate evasive maneuver as roaring fire and light horrifyingly filled the windshield. Petronella's world exploded in pain and broken glass as the guns of the Dias Irae opened fire and blasted her skiff from the yellow skies. Fucking hell. Loken surged backwards in horror and disgust as the cadaver attempted to strangle the life from him with its slimy fingers. For something as apparently fragile as a rotted corpse, the thing was possessed of a fearsome strength, and he was dragged to his knees by the weight and power of the creature. With a thought, he flooded his metabolism with battle stims, and fresh strength surged into his limbs. He gripped the arms of his attacker and pulled them from its reeking torso in a flood of dead fluids and a wash of brackish blood. The fire died in the thing's eyes and it flopped lifeless to the swamp. He pushed himself to his feet and took stock of the situation, his Astartes training suppressing any notion of panic or disorientation. From all around them, the bodies he had previously thought to be lifeless were rising from the dark waters and launching themselves at his warriors. Bolters blasted chunks of molded flesh from their bodies or tore limbs from putrefied torsos. But still they kept coming, tearing at the Astartes with diseased yellow claws. More of the things were rising all around them, and Loken shot 3 down with as many shots, shattering skulls and exploding chests with mass reactive shells.
"Sons of Horus! On me!"
he yelled.
"Form on me!"
The warriors of the 10th Company calmly began falling back to their captain, firing as they went at the necrotic horrors rising from the swamp like creatures from their worst nightmares. Hundreds of dead things surrounded them, mouldering corpses and bloated, muttering abominations, each with a single, milky, distended eye and a scabrous horn sprouting from its forehead. What were they? Monstrous xeno creatures with the power to reanimate dead flesh, or something far worse? Thick, buzzing clouds of flies flew around them, and Loken saw an Astartes go down, the feeds on his helmet thick with fat-bodied insects. The warrior frenziedly tore his helmet off, and Loken was horrified to see his flesh rotting away with an unnatural rapidity. his skin graying and peeling away to reveal the liquefying tissue beneath. The bark of Balterfire focused him, and he returned his attention to the battle before him, emptying magazine after magazine into the shambling mass of repulsive creatures before him.
Headshots only!
He cried as he put another of the dead things down, his skull a ruin of blackened bone and sloshing ooze. The tide of the battle began to turn as more and more of the shambling horrors went down and stayed down. The green-fleshed things with grotesquely distended bellies took more killing, though it seemed to Loken that they dissolved into stinking matter as they fell into the water of the swamp. More shapes moved through the mist, as a thunderous roar of heavy cannon fire came from behind them, followed by the bright flare of an explosion high above. Loken looked up to see a golden landing skiff trailing smoke and fire wobble in the sky, though he had not the time to wonder what a civilian craft was doing in a war zone, as yet more of the dead things climbed from the water. Too close for Balters. He drew his sword and brought the monstrously toothed blade to life with a press of the activation stud. A ghastly thing of decomposed flesh and rotten meat hurled itself at him, and he swung his blade two-handed for its skull. The blade roared as it slew, gobbets of wet, grey meat spattering his armor as he ripped the sword through from brainpan to groin. He swung at another creature, the green fire of its eyes flickering out as he hacked it in two. All around him, sons of Horus went toe-to-toe with the terrible creatures that had once been members of the 63rd Expedition. Rotted hands clamped onto his armor from beneath the water, and Loken felt himself being dragged down. He roared and reversed his grip on his sword, stabbing it straight down into leering skulls and rotted faces, but incredibly their strength was the greater, and he could not resist their pull. "Garvey!" shouted Vipus, hacking enemies from his path as he forged through the swamp towards him. "Luke! Help me!" cried Vipus, grabbing onto Loken's outstretched arm. Loken gripped onto his friend's hand as he felt another set of hands grip him from around his chest and haul backwards. "Let go, you bastards!" roared Luke Cedere, hauling with all his might. Loken felt himself rising and kicked out as the swamp creatures finally released him. He scrambled back and clambered to his feet. Together, he, Luke, and Nero fought with bludgeoning ferocity, although there was no shape to the battle now, if there ever even had been. It was nothing more than butcher's work, requiring no swordsmanship or finesse, just brute strength and a determination not to fall. Bizarrely, Loken thought of Lucius, the swordsman of the Emperor's Children Legion, and of how he would have hated this inelegant form of war. Loken returned his attention to the battle, and with Luke Cedere and Nero Vipus in the fight, he was able to gain some space and time to reorganize.
"Thanks, Luke, Nero. I owe you,"
he said in a lull in the fighting. The sons of Horus reloaded bolters and cleaned chunks of dead flesh from their swords. Sporadic bursts of gunfire still sounded from the swamp, and strobing flashes lit the fog with firefly bursts. Off to their left, Loken saw a burning pyre where the skiff had come down, its flames acting like a beacon in the midst of the obscuring fog. "No problem, Garvey," said Cedere, and Loken knew that he was grinning beneath his helmet. "You'll do the same for me before we're out of this shitstorm, I'll wager."
"You're probably right, but let's hope not."
"What's the plan, Garvey?" asked Vipus. Loken held up his hand for silence as he attempted to make contact with his Mournival brothers, and the War Master once more. Static and desperate cries filled the Vox, terrified voices of army soldiers and the damned, gurgling voices that kept saying, "Blessed be Nega," over and over. Then a voice cut across every channel, and Loken almost cried out aloud in relief to hear it.
"All sons of Horus, this is the War Master. Converge on this signal. Head for the flames."
At the sound of the War Master's voice, Fresh energy filled the tired limbs and hearts of the Astartes, and they moved off in good order towards the burning pillar of fire coming from the wrecked skiff they had seen earlier. Loken killed with a methodical precision, each shot felling an opponent. He began to feel that they finally had the measure of this grotesque enemy. Whatever fell energy bestowed animation upon these diseased nightmares was clearly incapable of giving them much more than basic motor functions and an unremitting hostility. Loken's armor was covered in deep gouges, and he wished he knew how many men he had lost to the loathsome hunger of the dead things. He vowed that this Nergleth would pay dearly for each of their deaths. Fucking hell. It's all kicking off. She could barely breathe, her chest hiking as she drew in convulsive gulps of air from the respirator Maggard was pushing against her face. Petronella's eyes stung, tears of pain coursing down her cheeks as she tried to push herself into a sitting position. All she remembered was a fury of noise and light, a metallic shriek and a bone-jarring impact as the skiff crashed and broke into pieces. Blood filled her senses and she felt excruciating pain all down her left side. Flames leapt around her and her vision blurred with the sting of the atmosphere and smoke. What happened? She managed, her voice muffled through the respirator's mouthpiece. Maggard didn't answer, but then she remembered that he couldn't, and twisted her head around to gain a better appreciation of her current situation. Torn up bodies clothed in her livery littered the ground, the pilots and flight crew of her skiff, and there was a lot of blood covering the wreckage. Even through the respirator, she could smell the gore. Cloying banks of leprous fog surrounded them, though the heat of the flames appeared to be clearing it in their immediate vicinity. Shambling shapes surrounded them, and relief flooded her as she realized that they would soon be rescued. Maggard spun, drawing his sword and his pistol, and Petronella tried to shout at him that he must stand down, that these were her rescuers. Then the first shape emerged from the smoke, and she screamed as she saw its diseased flesh and the rotted innards hanging from its opened belly. Nor was it the worst of the approaching things. A cavalcade of cadavers with bloated, ruptured flesh and putrid, diseased bodies sloshed through the mud and the wreckage towards them, clawed hands outstretched. The green fire in their eyes spoke of monstrous appetites, and Petronella felt a gut-wrenching terror greater than anything she had ever known. Oh, steam, Horus. Only Maggard stood between her and the walking, diseased corpses, and he was but one man. Oh, shit. Sorry. Only Maggard stood between her and the walking, diseased corpses, and he was but one man. She had watched him train in the gymnasia of Kairos many times, but she had never seen him draw his weapons in anger. Maggard's pistol barked, and each shot blasted one of the shambling horrors from its feet, neat holes drilled in its forehead. He fired and fired until his pistol was empty, and then holstered it and drew a long, triangular bladed dagger. As the horde approached, her bodyguard attacked. He leapt, feet first, at the nearest corpse, and the neck snapped beneath his boot heel. Maggard spun as he landed, his sword decapitating a pair of the monsters, and his dagger ripping the throat from another. His Carillion rapier darted like a silver snake, its glowing edge stabbing and cutting with incredible speed. Whatever it touched dropped instantly to the muddy ground like a servitor with its Datrina wafer pulled. His body was always in motion, leaping, twisting, and dodging away from the clutching hands of his diseased attackers. There was no pattern to their assault, simply a mindless host of dead things seeking to envelope them. Magad fought like nothing she had ever seen, his augmentic muscles bulging and flexing as he cut down his foes with quick, lethal strokes. No matter how many he killed, there were always more pressing in, and they steadily forced him back one step at a time. The horde of creatures began to surround them, and Petronella saw that Magad couldn't possibly hold them all back. He staggered towards her, bleeding from a score of minor wounds. His flesh was blistered and weeping around the cuts, and there was an unhealthy pallor to his skin, despite his respirator gear. She wept bitter tears of horror as the monsters closed in, jaws opening wide to devour her flesh, and grasping hands ready to tear her perfect skin and feast on her innards. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. The Great Crusade wasn't supposed to end in failure and death. A corpse with mouldering, sagging skin lurched past Magad, his blade lodged in the belly of a giant necrotic thing with green flesh that was thick with flies. She screamed as it reached for her. Deafening bangs thundered behind her, and the creature disintegrated in an explosion of wet meat and bone. Petronella covered her ears as the thunderous roar of gunfire came again, and her attackers were torn apart in a series of rancid explosions, falling back into the fires of the skiff and burning with stinking green flames. She rolled onto her side, crying in pain and fear as the terrifyingly close volleys continued, clearing a path for the massive, armored warriors of the Sons of Horus. A giant towered above her, reaching for her with his armored gauntlet. He wore no helmet and was silhouetted by a terrible red glow. His awesome bulk haloed by blazing plumes of fire and pillars of black smoke. Even through her tears, the War Master's beauty and physical perfection rendered her speechless. Though blood and dark slime covered his armor and his cloak was torn and tattered, Horus towered like a war god unleashed, his face a mask of terrifying power. He lifted her to her feet as easily as one might lift a babe in arms, and while his warriors continued the slaughter of the monstrous dead things, more and more Sons of Horus were converging on the crash site, guns firing to drive the enemy back and forming a protective cordon around the War Master.
Miss Vivar, demanded Horus, what in the name of terror are you doing here? I ordered you to stay aboard the Vengeful Spirit.
She struggled for words, still in awe of his magnificent presence. He had saved her. The War Master had personally saved her, and she wept to know his touch. I had to come. I had to see.
Your curiosity almost got you killed, raged Horus. If your bodyguard had been less capable, you'd already be dead.
She nodded dumbly, holding on to a twisted spar of metal to keep from collapsing as the War Master stepped through the debris towards Magad. The gold-armored warrior held himself erect, despite the pain of his wounds. Horus lifted Magad's sword arm, examining the warrior's blade.
What is your name, warrior?
Asked the War Master. Magad, of course, did not answer, looking over at Petronella for help in answering. He cannot answer you, my lord, said Petronella.
Why not? Doesn't he speak Imperial Gothic?
He does not speak at all, sir. House Carpinus chaperones removed his vocal cords.
And why would they do that?
An indentured servant of House Carpinus. And it's not a bodyguard's place to speak in the presence of his mistress. Horus frowned, as though he did not approve of such things, and said,
Then you tell me what his name is.
He's called Maggot, sir.
And this blade he wields. How is it the slightest touch of its edge slays one of these creatures?
It's a Curlian blade, forged on ancient terror and said to be able to sever the connection between the soul and the body. I've never seen it used before today.
Well, whatever it is, I think it saved your life, Miss Vivar.
She nodded as the War Master turned to face Maggot once more and made the sign of the Aquila, before saying,
You fought with great courage, Maggot. Be proud of what you did here today.
Maggot nodded and dropped to his knees with his head bowed, tears streaming from eyes at being so honored by the War Master.
The Carpinus.
Horus bent down and placed the palm of his hand on the bodyguard's shoulder, saying,
Rise, Maggot. You've proven yourself to be a warrior. No warrior of such courage should ever kneel before me.
Maggot stood, smoothly reversing the grip of his sword and offering it hilt first to the War Master. The yellow sky reflected coldly in his golden eyes, and Petronella shivered as she saw a newfound devotion in her bodyguard's posture, an expression of faith and pride that frightened her with its intensity. The meaning of the gesture was clear. It said what Magard himself could not. I am yours to command. Fucking hell. It's all booting off. It's all booting off! What's fucking Steve Morris saying? Steam Horus the Sponge. Maggot did just get a big shout out from Horus. They might have cut his tongue off, but I don't think they cut his car penis off, so that was probably fucking erect. Shit himself, didn't he, in his golden armor? Magard. That's how you'd spell it. I don't know how it's pronounced. It's either pronounced Magard or Magard, but I say Magard because I'm from Manchester and it's easier for me to say things like that. Oh, por favor. Bit of Spanish for you there. You know what I mean? Bit of the old Spanish. Thus assembled, the Astartes took stock of their situation. All four phalanxes had rendezvoused around the crash site as the attacks from the diseased and dead things ceased for the time being. The spear tip was blunted, but it was still an awesome fighting force and easily capable of destroying what remained of Tember's paltry detachment. Alright, fake bag, see you in a bit. Yeah, Chaka, this book's well good. I like this book more than the first one. The first one's sick, but I like this one more. Cedere volunteered his men to secure the perimeters, and Loken simply waved his assent. Knowing that Luke was hungry for more battle and for a chance to shine in front of the War Master. Vipus reformed the scouting parties and Virilan Moy set up fire positions for his devastators. Loken was relieved beyond words to see that all four members of the Mournival had survived the fighting, though Torgadon and Abaddon had both lost their helmets in the furious melees. Aximan's armor had been torn open across his side, and a splash of red, shockingly bright against the green of his armor, stained his thigh. "You all right?" Togadon asked him, his armor stained and blistered as though someone had poured acid all over its plates.
"Just about," nodded Loken. "You?"
"Yeah. Well, it was a close-run thing," conceded Togadon. "Bastard got me underwater and was choking the life out of me. Tore me helmet right off. Think I must have drunk about a bucket of that swamp water. Had to gut him with me combat knife. Messy." Togadon's gen-enhanced body would be unharmed by swallowing the water, no matter what toxins it carried. But it was a stark reminder of the power of these creatures that a warrior as fearsome as him could almost be overcome. Abaddon and Aximan had similar tales of close-run things, and Loken desperately wanted the fight to be over. The longer the mission went on, the more it reminded him of Eidolon's abortive first strike on murder. Restored communications revealed that the Byzant Janizars had suffered terribly under the assault from the swamp, and had hunkered down in defensive positions. Yo, JSMD, with the resub. Big love. Cheers, JSMD. Massive love. Appreciate ya. Not even the electro-scythes of their disciplined masters were able to coerce them forward. The horrific enemy had melted back into the fog, but no one could say with any certainty where the creatures had gone. The titans of the Legio Mortis towered over the Astartes, the Dies Irae reassuring the assembled warriors by the simple virtue of its immensity. It was left to Erebus to point the way onwards. He and his depleted warriors staggering into the circle of light surrounding Petronella Vivar's crashed skiff. The first chaplain's armor was stained and battered, his many seals and scripture papers torn from it.
"War Master, I believe we have found the source of the transmissions," reported Erebus. "There is a structure up ahead."
"Where is it and how close?" demanded the War Master.
"Perhaps another kilometer to the west."
Horus raised his sword and shouted,
"Sons of Horus, we have been grossly wronged here, and some of our brothers are dead. It is time we avenge them."
His voice easily carried over the dead waters of the swamps, his warriors roaring their ascent, and following the War Master as Erebus and the Wordbearers set off into the mists. Fired with furious energy, the Astartes ploughed through the sodden ground, ready to enact the War Master's wrath upon the vile foe that had unleashed such horrors upon them. Maggard and Petronella went with them, none of the Astartes willing to retreat and escort them back to the army positions. Legion apothecaries tended their wounds and helped them through the worst of the terrain. Eventually, the mists began to thin, and Loken could make out more distant figures of Astartes warriors through the smudges of fog. The further they marched, the more solid the ground underfoot became, and as Erebus led them onwards, the mist became thinner still. Then, as quickly as a man might step from one room to another, they were out of it. Behind them, the banks of fog gathered and coiled like a theatre curtain in a playhouse waiting to unveil some wondrous marvel. Before them was the source of the Vox transmission, rearing up from the muddy plain like colossal iron mountain. Eugen Tember's flagship, the glory of Terra. Ooh. Now that's the end of that chapter. We'll just have a little break before I read one more chapter tonight. Ooh. So what do you think of that then? What do you think? What do you think? Big old battle scene there. Loads of shit going on. What are you guys thinking? Chakra, I don't trust Erebus. Eggy, Erebus is about to turn heel.
I want to know what you guys are thinking. Let me know in the chat before I continue the story. I'm just gonna have a little vape break. Chaka's still thinking it's a trap. So what do you think those things in the swamp are? What do you think about them things in the swamp? What do you think that is? Chaka thinks it's a trap by Erebus, I'm assuming. That's what you said. Because then he gets Horus and his soldiers in one go. Interesting. So I don't know whether you noticed, there was two types of enemies in the swamp. So there was the dead things that looked like they were like, well, they were dead. They were like dead zombie things, weren't they? They looked like dead human soldiers, dead human Imperial soldiers, because they had the 63rd Expedition uniforms on. And then the other things that were attacking them out of the swamp, what did they describe? They described them as green things with giant open mouth where their bellies are, and they had one eye and one horn on their head. And they were bigger. So there was two different types of things that were attacking them in the swamp. The dead things and the green things with the mouth on the belly and one eye. I want to know what you guys are thinking before I continue. Eggy, I wouldn't put it past Erebus to set a trap like this. Chaka, is it the ones they could hear in the first book? Oh, what you mean, Samus? The thing that oh God, what's he called? Why can I not remember his name? The thing that the Space Marine became. The thing, Eggy says, the things that were doing the chanting, I bet Erebus has struck a deal with in some way. Interested. So Erebus is leading them now. Obviously, Erebus has rocked up. And now he's leading the way. And he's led them to a giant spaceship that's just on the planet. Which is Yugen Temba's giant spaceship. It's a flagship as well, so it's fucking massive. It's like vengeful spirit sized. Chaka, maybe the belly boys can turn the dead soldiers into zombies. Interesting. What was the thing that was being said over the Vox? Something to do with Nergleth. Nergleth, they were saying, weren't they? And then Loken was like, well, whoever this Nergleth is, I'm gonna fucking open a can of whoop ass on him. That's basically what Loken said, didn't he? Eggy says, Erebus has been doing some kind of shady shit out of the eyes and ears of the rest of the council. Yeah. Chaka, why does Erebus know all this and he isn't hurt? Don't know. But I do know, but don't know. Should we find out? Shaka, Erebus still have the weapons he stole? Don't know. Don't know. We don't know. That traitorous bastard. Should we find out? I'll read one more chapter tonight, because this is a really good part of the book, so I'll read one more. Right. Chapter 7. Let me get comfy. Here we go. Oh, there we go. Oh, that is nice. Chapter 7. Watch our backs. Collapse. The betrayer. Rusted and dead nearly 6 decades. The vessel lay smashed and ruined on the cratered mudflats. Its once mighty hull torn open and buckled almost beyond recognition. Its towering Gothic spires, like the precincts of a mighty city, lay fallen and twisted. Its buttresses and archways hung with decaying fronds of huge web-like vines. Its keel was broken, as though it had struck the moon's surface belly first, and many of the upper surfaces had caved in. The decks below open to the elements. Swathes of mossy greenery covered the hull, and her command spires speared into the sky. Warp vanes and tall vox masts bending in the moaning wind. Loken thought the scene unbearably sad. That this should be the final resting place of such a magnificent vessel seemed utterly wrong to him. Pieces of debris spotted the landscape. Twisted hunks of rusted metal and incongruous personal items that must have belonged to the ship's crew and had been ejected during the massive impact with the ground. Throne, breathed Abaddon. How was Aximand all Aximand could manage? It's the glory of terror, all right, said Erebus. I recognize the warp array configuration of the command deck. It's Temba's flagship. Then Temba's already dead, said Abaddon in frustration. Nothing could have survived that crash.
Then who's broadcasting that signal?
Asked Horus.
Could have been automated, suggested Targadon. Maybe it's been going for years.
Loken shook his head.
No. Signal only started once we breached the atmosphere. Someone here activated it when they knew we were coming.
The War Master stared at the massive shape of the wrecked spaceship, as if by staring hard enough he could penetrate its hull and discern what lay within. Oh, 1 second. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that.
Then we should go in,
Urged Erebus.
find whoever is inside, and kill them.
Loken rounded on the first chaplain.
Go inside? Are you mad? We don't have any idea what might be waiting for us. There could be thousands more of those things inside. Or something even worse.
What is the matter, Loken?
Snarled Erebus.
Are the sons of Horus now afraid of the dark?
Loken took a step towards Erebus and said,
You dare insult us, word bearer.
Erebus stepped to meet Loken's challenge, but the Mournival took up position behind their newest member and their presence gave the first chaplain pause. Instead of pursuing the matter, Erebus bowed his head and said,
I apologize if I spoke out of turn, Captain Loken. I sought only to erase the gross stain on the Legion's honor.
The Legion's honor is ours to uphold, Erebus,
said Loken.
It is not for you to tell us how we must act.
Horus decided the matter before the further harsh words could be exchanged.
We're going in,
He said. The rippling fog bank followed the Astartes as they advanced towards the crashed ship, and the titans of the Legio Mortis followed behind, their legs still wreathed in the mists. Loken kept his bolter at the ready, conscious of the sounds of splashing water behind them, though he told himself that they were just the normal sounds of this world, whatever that meant. As they closed the gap, he drew level with the War Master and said,
Sir, I know what you'll say, but I would be remiss if I didn't speak up. Speak up about what, Garville?
asked Horus.
About this. Are you leading us into the unknown? Haven't I been doing that for the last 2 centuries?
asked Horus.
All the time we've been pushing out into space. Hasn't it been to push back the unknown? That's what we're here for, Garville. To render that which is unknown, known.
Loken sensed the commander's superlative skills of misdirection at work, and kept himself focused on the point. The War Master had an easy way of steering conversations away from issues he didn't want to talk about.
Sir, do you value the Mournfuller's counsel?
asked Loken, taking a different tack. Horus paused in his advance, turned to face Loken, his face serious.
You heard what I told that remembrancer in the embarkation deck, didn't you? I value your counsel above all things, Garville. Why would you even ask such a question? Because so often, you simply use us as your war dogs, always baying for blood, having us play a role, instead of allowing us to keep you true to your course. Then say what you have to say, Garville, and I swear I will listen. With respect, sir, you should not be air leading the spear tip, and we should not be going into that vessel without proper reconnaissance. We have 3 of the Mechanicum's greatest war machines behind us. Can we not at least let them soften up the target first with their cannons?
Horus chuckled.
You have a thinker's head on you, my son. But wars are not won by thinkers. They are won by men of action. It has been too long since I wielded a blade and fought in such a battle against abominations that seek nothing more than our utter destruction. I told you on murder that had I felt I could not take to the field of battle again, I would have refused the position of War Master. Mournful would have done this thing for you, said Loken. We carry your honor now. You think my shoulders so narrow that I cannot bear it alone?
asked Horus. And Loken was shocked to see genuine anger in his stare.
No, sir. All I mean is that you don't need to bear it alone.
Horus laughed and broke the tension, his anger quite forgotten. He said,
You're right, of course, my son. But my glory days are not yet over. I have many laurels yet to earn.
The War Master set off once more.
Mark my words, Garville Loken. Everything achieved thus far in this crusade will pale into insignificance compared to what I am yet to do.
Despite the War Master's insistence on leading the Astartes into the wreck, he consented to Loken's plan of allowing the Titans of the Legio Mortis to engage the target first. All 3 mighty war engines braced themselves and, at a command from the War Master, unleashed a rippling salvo of missiles and cannon fire into the massive ship. Flaring blooms of light and smoke rippled across the ship's immensity and it shuddered with each concussive impact. Fires caught throughout its hull, and thick plumes of acrid black smoke twisted skyward like signal beacons, as though the ship were trying to send a message to its former masters. Once again, the War Master led from the front, the mist following them in like a smoggy cape of yellow. Loken could still hear noises from behind them, but with the thunderous footfalls of the Titans, the crackling of the burning ship and their own splashing steps, it was impossible to be sure what he was hearing. "Feels like a damn noose," said Targadon, looking over his shoulder and mirroring Loken's thoughts perfectly.
Know what you mean.
Don't like the thought of going in there, I can tell you that.
Not afraid, are you?
Asked Loken, only half joking. Don't you be flipping, Garvey, said Targadon. For once, I think you're right. Something not right about this. Loken saw genuine concern in his friend's face, unsettled at seeing the joker Targadon suddenly serious. For all his bluster and informality, Tarek had good instincts, and they had saved Loken's life on more than one occasion.
What's on your mind?
He asked. I think this is a trap, said Targadon. We're being funneled here, and it feels like it's to get us inside that ship.
Said as much to the War Master.
What did he say?
What do you think?
Yeah, nodded Targadon. Well, you seriously didn't expect to change the commander's mind, did you?
Thought I might have given him pause. But it's as if he's not listening to us anymore. Erebus has made the commander so angry at Temba, he won't even consider any other option, other than going in and killing him with his bare hands.
So, what do we do? Asked Targadon, and once again Loken was surprised.
We watch our backs, my friend. We watch our backs.
Good plan, said Targadon. Hadn't thought that. And here I was, all set to walk into a potential trap with my guard down. That was the Targadon that Loken knew and loved. The rear quarter of the crashed glory of terror reared up before them, his command decks pitched upwards at an angle, blotting out the diseased sky. It enveloped them in its dark, cold shadow, and Loken saw that getting into the ship would not be difficult. The gunfire from the Titans had blasted huge tears in its hull, and piles of debris had spilled from inside, forming great ramps of buckled steel like the rocky slopes before the walls of a breached fortress. The War Master called a halt and began issuing his orders.
Captain Cederay, you and your assaulters will form the vanguard.
Loken could practically feel Luke's pride at such an honor.
Captain Moy, you will accompany me. Your flame and melter units will be invaluable in case we need to quickly cleanse an area or breach bulkheads.
Moy nodded, his quiet reserve more dignified than Luke's eagerness to impress the War Master with his ardor. What are your orders, War Master? Asked Erebus, his grey armoured word-bearers at attention behind their first chaplain. We stand ready to serve.
Erebus, take your warriors over to the other side of the ship. Find a way in and then rendezvous with me in the middle. If that bastard Temba tries to run, I want him crushed between us.
The first chaplain nodded his understanding and led his warriors off into the shadow of the mighty vessel. Then the War Master turned to the Mournival. Hey, Rob.
Ezekiel, use the signal locator on my armor to form overlapping echelons around my left. Little Horus, take my right. Targadon and Loken, form the rear. Secure this area and our line of withdrawal. Is that understood?
The War Master delivered the orders with his trademark efficiency. But Loken was aghast at being left to cover the rear of their advance. He could see that the others of the Mournival, especially Targadon, were similarly surprised. Was this the War Master's way of punishing him for daring to question his orders, or for suggesting that he should not be leading the spear tip? To be left behind?
Understood,
repeated Horus, and all 4 members of the Mournival nodded their assent.
Then let's move out,
snarled the War Master.
I have a traitor to kill.
Oh, 1 minute. A drink.
Hey, Megan.
How you doing? Fucking hell. If you guys are only just tuning in, fuck me, you missed the right chapter. The last chapter we just read. Fucking hell. All kinds of shit going on. Luke Cedere led the assaulters, the bulky backburners of their jump packs easily carrying them up towards the black tears in the side of the ship. As Loken expected, Luke was first inside, vanishing into the darkness with barely a pause. His warriors followed him and were soon lost to sight, as Abaddon and Axeman found other ways inside, climbing up the debris to reach the still smoking holes that the Titans had torn. Axeman gave him a quick shrug as he led his own squads upwards, and Loken watched them go, unable to believe that he would not be fighting alongside his brothers as they went into battle. The War Master himself strode up the piled debris as easily as a man might ascend a gently sloping hill, Verulam Moy and his weapons specialists following in his wake. Within moments, they were alone on the desolate mudflats, and Loken could sense the confusion in his warriors. They stood awkwardly, awaiting orders to send them into a fight, but he had none to give them. Torgadon saved him from his stupefaction, bellowing out commands and lighting a fire under the Astartes left behind. They spread out to form a cordon around their position, Nero Vipas's scouts taking up position at the edge of the mist, and Breakspur climbing up the slopes to guard the entrances to the glory of terror. "Just what exactly did you say to the commander?" asked Torgadon, squelching back through the mud towards him. Loken cast his mind back to the words that had passed between himself and the War Master since they had set foot on Davin's moon, searching for some offense that he might have given. Could find nothing serious enough to warrant his and Torgadon's exclusion from the battle against Temba.
Nothing, he said. Just what I told you.
"This doesn't make any sense," said Torgadon, attempting to wipe some mud from his face, but only serving to spread it further across his features. "I mean, why leave us out of all the fun? I mean, come on. Moy?"
"Verulam's a competent officer," said Loken.
"Competent?" scoffed Torgadon. "Don't get me wrong, Garvey. I love Verulam like a brother. He's a file officer. You know it, and I know it. And while there's nothing wrong with that, and Emperor knows we need good file officers, he's not the sort the War Master should have at his side at a time like this." Loken couldn't argue with Tarek's logic, having had the same reaction upon hearing the War Master's orders.
"I don't know what to tell you, Tarek. You're right. But the commander has given his orders. We're pledged to obey him."
"Even when we know those orders make no sense?" Loken had no answer to that. War Master and Verulam Moy led the van of the spear tip through the dark and oppressive interior of the Glory of Terror. Its arched passageways canted at unnatural angles and its bulkheads warped and rusted with decay. Brackish water dripped through sections open to the elements, and a reeking wind gusted through the creaking hallways like a cadaver's breath. Diseased streamers of black fungus and dangling fronds of rotted matter brushed against their heads and helmets, leaving slimy trails of sticky residue behind. The perforated floors were treacherous and uneven, but the Astartes made good time, pushing ever upwards through the halls of putrefaction towards the command decks. Regular, static-laced communication with Cedere's vanguard informed them of his progress ahead of them. The ship apparently lifeless and deserted. Even though the vanguard was relatively close, Cedere's voice was chopped with interference. Every third word or so unintelligible. The deeper into the ship they penetrated, the worse it got.
Ezekiel,
said the War Master, opening the Vox mic on his gorget.
Progress report.
Abaddon's voice was barely recognizable, as crackling pops and wet hissing overlaid it with meaningless babble.
Moving. Low. Dex. Keep. We have. Flank. Master.
Horus tapped his gorget.
Ezekiel. Damn it.
The War Master turned to Verulam Moy and said,
Try to raise Erebus.
Before returning to his own attempts at communication.
Little Horus, can you hear me?
More static followed, uninterrupted, save for a faint voice.
Ordnance deck. Shells. Making sit. But. Make progress.
Nothing from Erebus, reported Moy. But he may be on the other side of the ship by now. If the interference we're getting between our own warriors is anything to go by, it's unlikely our armorlings will be able to reach him.
Damn it,
repeated the War Master.
Well, let's keep going.
Sir, ventured Moy. Might I make a suggestion?
If it's that we turn back, forget it, Verulam. My honor and that of the Crusade has been impugned, and I'll not have it said that I turned my back on it.
I know that, sir. But I do believe Captain Loken is correct. We're taking a needless risk here.
Life is a risk, my friend. Every day we spend away from terror is a risk. Every decision I make is a risk. We cannot avoid risk, my friend. For if we do, we achieve nothing. If the highest aim of a captain was to preserve his chip, he would be in port forever. You are a fine officer, Verulam, but you do not see heroic opportunities as I do.
But, sir, protested Moy, we cannot maintain contact with our warriors, and we have no idea what might be waiting for us in this ship. Forgive me if I speak out of turn, but delving into the unknown like this does not feel like heroism, it feels like guesswork. Horus leaned in close to Moy and said,
Captain, you know as well as I do that the whole art of war consists of guessing what is on the other side of the hill.
I understand that, sir, began Moy, but Horus was in no mood for interruptions.
Ever since the Emperor appointed me in the role of War Master, people have been telling me what I can and cannot do, and I tell you I am sick and tired of it,
snapped Horus.
If people don't like my opinions, then that's their problem. I am the War Master, and I've made up my mind. We go on.
A squealing shriek of static abruptly sliced through the darkness, and Luke Cedere's voice came over the armor link as clearly as if he stood next to them.
Throne! They're here!
Shouted Cedere. Then everything turned upside down.
A throbbing cuddle.
A bit of a... The old bottle. The old Slam King water bottle. Available at the merch store. That Chaka has been kind enough to drop into the chat there.
Lovely stuff.
I've got mine filled with Vimto. The ambrosia of Lancashire, as we call it. Thank you very much. You can get your own at the Streamlabs merch store. Absolutely wunderbar. Look at that. It literally does. Like, I've got piss in this, and it tastes like Vimto. I don't know how that works. I've told you before. I'm not a scientist. I don't make the rules. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it's the logo. Maybe it's the color. Who knows? You put anything in it, and it just tastes amazing. I've not actually got piss in it, but I don't know whether that's a good way of selling things. Turning piss into Vimto, exactly. Hey Shadow, how you doing? The modern Jesus, turning piss into Vimto. Right. Loken felt it through the soles of his boots, as tremendous rumbling that seemed to come from the very foundations of the moon. He turned in horror, hearing metal grind on metal with a deafening screech, and watching geysers of mud spout skyward as buried portions of the starship tore themselves free of the sucking mud. The upper sections of the vessel plummeted towards the ground, and the entire ship began tipping, the colossal rear section arcing downwards with a terrible inevitability. Oh, it's back on.
Jesus Herbert Christ.
All right.
Everyone get clear,
bellowed Loken, as the massive weight of metal gathered speed. Astartes scattered from the falling wreck, and Loken felt its massive shadow like a shroud as his armor's senses shut out the roaring noise of the starship's collapse. He looked back in time to see the wreckage slam into the ground with the force of an orbital strike, the superstructure crumpling under the impact of its own weight and hurling lakes of muddy water through the air. Loken was tossed like a leaf by the shockwave, landing waist deep in a stagnant pool of greenish scum and disappearing beneath the surface. Rolling to his knees, he saw tsunamis of mud rippling out from the vessel and watched as dozens of his warriors were buried beneath the brownish sludge. The power of the wrecked starship's impact spread from the crater it had gouged in the mud. A brackish rain of muddy water drizzled down, smearing his helmet's visor and reducing visibility to no more than a few hundred meters. Loken climbed to his feet, clearing the action of his bolter as he realized the shockwave has dispersed the sulphurous fog that had been their constant companion since landing on this accursed moon.
Sons of Horus, stand ready,
he shouted, seeing what lay beyond the fog. Hundreds of the dead things marched relentlessly towards them. Not even the armor of a Primarch could withstand the impact of a falling starship, and Horus grunted as he pulled a twisted spar of jagged iron from his chest. Sticky blood coated his armor, and the wound sealing almost as soon as he had withdrawn the metal. His gen-hanced body could easily withstand such trivial punishment, and despite the spinning fall through the decks of the ship, he remained perfectly orientated and in balance on the sloping deck. He remembered the sound of tearing metal, the clang of metal on armor, and the sharp crack of bones snapping as Astartes' warriors were thrown around like children in a funhouse.
Sons of Horus,
he shouted.
Verlam.
Only mocking echoes answered him, and he cursed as he realized he was alone.
The Vox mic on his gorget was shattered, brass wires hanging limply from the empty socket, and he angrily ripped them away. Verlan Moy was nowhere to be seen, and his squad members were similarly scattered beyond sight. Quickly taking stock of his surroundings, Horus could see that he lay partially buried in metal debris on the Armorium vestibule, his ceiling bulging and cracked. Icy water dripped in a cold rain, and he tipped his head back to let it pour over his face. He was close to the bridge of the ship, assuming it hadn't sheared off on impact with the ground. But surely there could be no other explanation for what had happened. Horus hauled himself from beneath the wreckage and checked to make sure he was still armed, finding his sword hilt protruding from the detritus of the vestibule. Pulling the weapon clear, its golden blade caught what little light there was and shone as though an inner fire burned within its core. Forged by his brother, Ferrus Manus of the 10th Legion, the Iron Hands, it had been a gift to commemorate Horus's investiture as War Master. He smiled as he saw that the weapon remained as unblemished as the day Ferrus had held it out to him, the light of adoration in his steel-grey eyes, and Horus had never been more thankful for his brother's skill at the forge's anvil. The deck creaked beneath his weight, and he suddenly began to question the wisdom of leading this assault. Despite that, he still seethed with molten rage for Yugen Temba, a man whose character he had believed in, and whose betrayal cut his heart with searing knives. What manner of a man would betray the oath of loyalty to the Imperium? What manner of base cur would dare to betray him? The deck shifted again, Horus easily compensating for the lurching motion. He used his free hand to haul himself upwards towards the gaping doorway that led to the warren of passageways that riddled a ship this size. Horus had set foot on the Glory of Terror only once before, nearly 70 years ago, but he remembered its layout as though it had been yesterday. Beyond this doorway lay the upper gantries of the Armorium, and beyond that, the central spine of the ship that led through several defensive choke points to the bridge. Horus grunted as he felt a sharp pain in his chest, and realized that the iron spar must have torn through one of his lungs. Without hesitation, he switched his breathing pattern and carried on without pause, his eyesight easily piercing the darkness of the vessel's interior. This close to the bridge, Horus could see the terrible changes wrought upon the ship, its walls coated in loathsome bacterial slime that ate at the metal like an acidic fungus. Dripping fronds of waving, leech-like organisms suckled at oozing pustules of greenish-brown matter, and an unremitting stench of decay hung in the air. Horus wondered what had happened to the ship. Had the tribes of the moon unleashed some kind of deadly plague on the crew? Were these the means that Erebus had spoken of? He could taste that the air was thick with lethal bacterial filth and biological contaminants, though none were even close enough to virulent enough to trouble his incredible metabolism. With the golden light of his sword to illuminate the way, Horus negotiated a path around the gantry, listening out for any signs of his warriors. The occasional distant crack of gunfire or clang of metal told him that he wasn't completely alone, but the whereabouts of the battles was a mystery. The corrupted inner structure of the ship threw phantom echoes and faraway shouts all around him, until he decided to ignore them and press on alone. Horus passed through the Armorium and into the starship's central spine. The deck warped and canted at an unnatural angle. Flickering glow globes and sputtering power conduits sparked and lit the arched passageway with blue electrical fire. Broken doors clanged against their frames with the rocking motion of the ship, making a sound like funeral bells. Ahead, he could hear a low moaning and the shuffle of calloused feet. The first sounds he could clearly identify. It came from beyond a wide hatchway, toothed blast doors juddering open and closed like the jaws of some monstrous beast. Crushed debris prevented the doors from closing completely, and Horus knew that whatever was making the noises that stood between him and his ultimate destination, some trick of the diffuse, strobing light threw jittering shadows from the mouth of the hatchway, and flickering after images danced on his retinas as though the light came from a picked projector running in slow motion. As the hatchway rumbled closed once more, a clawed hand reached out and gripped the smeared metal. Long, dripping yellow talons sprouted from the hand, the flesh of the wasted arm maggot-ridden and leprous. Another hand pushed through and clamped onto the metal, wrenching open the blast doors with a strength that belied the frailness of the arms. The sensation of fear was utterly alien to Horus, but when the horrifying source of the sounds was revealed, he was suddenly seized with the conviction that perhaps his captains had been right after all. A shambling mob of rotten-fleshed famine victims appeared, their shuffling gaits carrying them forward in a droning phalanx of corruption. A creeping sensation of hidden power pulsed from their hunger-wasted bodies and swollen bellies, and buzzing clouds of flies surrounded their cyclopean horned heads. Sonorous doggerels spilled from bloated and spilt lips, though Horus could make no sense of the words. Green flesh hung from exposed bones, and although they moved with the leaden monotony of the dead things, Horus could see coiled strength in their limbs and a terrible hunger in each monster's cataracted eyeball. The creatures were less than a dozen meters from him, but their images were blurred and wavering as though tears misted his vision. He blinked rapidly to clear it, and saw their swords rusted and dripped with contagion.
Well, you're a handsome bunch and no mistake,
said Horus, raising his sword and throwing himself forward. His golden sword clove into the monsters like fiery comet, each blow hacking down a dozen or more without effort. Spatters of diseased meat caked the walls, and the air was thick with the stench of fecal matter, as each monster exploded with rotten bangs of flesh at his every blow. Filthy claws tore at Horus, but his every limb was a weapon. His elbows smashed skulls from shoulders, his knees and feet shattered spines, and his sword struck his foes down as if they were mindless automatons in the training cages. Horus did not know what manner of creatures these were, but they had obviously never faced a being as mighty as a Primarch. He pushed further up the central spine of the starship, hacking a path through hundreds of organ-draped beasts. Behind him lay the ruin of his passing, shredded meat that reeked of decay and pestilence. Before him lay scores more of the creatures, and the bridge of the glory of terror. He lost track of time, the primal brutality of the fight capturing the entirety of his attention, his sword strikes mechanical and bludgeoning. Nothing could stand before him, and with each blow, the War Master drew closer to his goal. The corridor grew wider as he pushed through the heaving mass of cyclopean monsters, the golden sheen of his sword and the flickering uncertain lights of the corridor making it appear that his enemies were becoming less substantial. His sword chopped through a distended belly, ripping it wide open in a gush of stinking fluids. But instead of bursting open, the meat of the creature simply vanished, like greasy smoke in the wind. Horus took another step forwards, but instead of meeting his foes head-on with brutal ferocity, the corridor was suddenly and inexplicably empty. He looked around, and where once there had been a host of diseased creatures bent on his death, now there were only the reeking remains of hacked-up corpses. Even they were dissolving like fat on a griddle, vanishing in hissing streamers of green smoke so dark it was almost black.
Groan,
Hissed Horus, revolted by the sickening sight of the liquefying meat, and finally recognizing the taint within the ship for what it was. A charnel house of the warp, a spawning ground of the immaterium. Horus felt fresh resolve fill his limbs as he drew closer to the multiple blast doors that protected the bridge, more certain than ever that he must destroy Jugendtember. He expected it, yet more legions of the warp-spawned things, but the way was eerily quiet. The silence punctuated only by the sounds of more gunfire, which he was now sure was coming from beyond the hull, and the patter of black water on his armor. Horus made his way forward cautiously, brushing sparking cables from his path as, one by one, sealed blast doors slowly rumbled open at his approach. The whole thing reeked of a trap, but nothing could deny him his vengeance now, and he pressed onwards. Stepping onto the bridge of the Glory of Terror, Horus saw that its colonnaded immensity had been changed from a place of command to something else entirely. Mouldering banners hung from the highest reaches, with long dead corpses stitched into the torn fabric of each one. Even from here, Horus could see that they wore the lupine grey uniforms of the 63rd Expedition, and he wondered if these poor souls had stayed true to their oaths of loyalty.
you will be avenged, my friends,
he whispered, as he stepped further into the bridge. The tiered workstations were smashed and broken, their inner workings ripped out and rewired in some bizarre new way. Meters thick bundles of coiled wire rising into the darkness of the arched ceiling. Throbbing energy pulsed from the cables, and Horus realized that he was looking at the source of the Vox signal that had so perturbed Loken on the way in. Indeed, he fancied he could still hear the words of that damned voice whispering on the air like a secret that would turn your tongue black were you to tell it.
Nerglath,
it hissed, over and over. Then he realized that it wasn't some auditory echo from the ship's Vox, but a whisper from a human throat. Horus's eyes narrowed as he sought the source of the voice, his lip curling in revulsion as he saw the massively swollen figure of a man standing before the captain's throne. Little more than a heaving mass of corpulent flesh, a terrific stench of rank meat rose from his fleshy immensity. Flying things with glossy black bodies infested every fold of his skin, and scraps of grey cloth were stuck to his green-grey flesh. Gold epaulets glinting and silver frogging hanging limply over his massive belly. One hand rested in the gluttonous mess of an infected wound on his chest, while the other held a sword with a glitter sheen like diamond. Horus dropped to his knees in anger and sorrow as he saw the slumped corpse of an Astartes warrior sprawled before the decayed splendor of the bloated figure. Verulam Moy, his neck obviously broken, and his sightless eyes fixed upon the decaying corpses hanging from the banners. Even before Horus lifted his gaze to Moy's killer, he knew who it was. Eugen Tember, the betrayer. And that is where we will leave it for tonight. Oh, shit! So, what do you guys think of that? What do you guys think? Yeah, Queechbot's still being shit. I'll figure it out by tomorrow. Yeah, I don't know what's up with it. It's being annoying, though. So what do you think? What do you think's going on? So, Horus is on his own. Virulent Moy's dead. He's fucking crazy. So, yeah. Loads of shit going on. Nosset thinks Erebus is a necromancer or some shit. Eggy says Horus should have listened to his captains. Yeah. Necrop says big up Logan.
Your hat off, boy. That's a dollar bill.
Oh. There we go. Chaka still thinks Erebus is shady as fuck. Did you hear what it said about the big creature that is Eugen Tember, that Eugen Tember's become? Did you hear what it said about his about his hands? Nossa, is there magic like that in this world? We'll have to wait and see, won't we? We'll have to wait and see. According to the Emperor, there's no such thing as magic. The Emperor says there's no such thing as magic. Jacko, I mean, if Horus dies, it's his own fault. Eggy's saying Erebus definitely had something to do with what's happened to Tember. Nossa says, you fell for the classic divide and conquer. Seems that way, doesn't it? Chaka, ooh. Did Erebus give Tember the weapon? Well, do you remember what it said? I can read it again. I can read that bit again if you want. If you want me to read it again. About its hands. Where is it? One hand rested in the gluttonous mess of an infected wound in his chest, while the other held a sword with a glitter sheen like diamond. What do you think of that? Hey, shit's gonna kick off next week. Denmark, how are you? Big love. Nice to see you, Denmark. Not seen you for a while. How are you doing? Shadow, how are you doing, Shadow? You all right, mate? So, right, for those of you who don't know the story, tell me in the chat right now, with everything that's happened so far, right? So, obviously, Horus is cut off from all his men. Fucking Virulent Moy's dead. He's now in a room, face to face,
with this thing that used to be Jugendtember, and this thing has got a very interesting looking blade in its hand. What do you think is going to happen? What I want to know what you think is going to happen. How many books are there, by the way, Chaka says? In the entire series, like 50 plus, but I'm not reading all of them. I'm just going to read the main ones. Because basically, there's 3 books at the beginning that all go like one after the other. So you read them in order, and then it kind of like veers off like a tree. So you can follow different story arcs with different characters and stuff. Oh, this story. Fuck, I don't know. I actually don't know. If Gav was here, he'd be able to tell us. Maybe 20 in the main story arc. But it, like I said, it goes after the first 3 books. It goes off. You've lost all your eggs today. When we doing Night Haunter though, when we get to it, we'll definitely read the Night Lords book because they're really good. Where are we at? Chaka says this is going to be the longest week. Denmark, I'm good, bro. See, how is tours going? I'm not in the band no more, mate. I'm fucking full-time Twitch streaming. It's fucking sick. Eggy's saying Horus is definitely fucked. Nosset's saying, well, I think with the intro of zombies, magic is definitely involved somehow. Or gods are real and pissed. Denmark. It is false gods, yeah. Yeah. If you know about it, Denmark, don't put any spoilers in the chat. Because we've got a lot of people on the stream who this is their first time ever hearing anything about this story, so they don't know. So don't post any spoilers. Chaka, I mean, if there is 3 books, he might survive, but then again, it might be like Game of Thrones. Eggy, someone's gonna fucking die, that's for sure, either Horus or Erebus, maybe both. Denmark is a Conan the Barbarian sword from the movie. It's the Atlantean sword from the movie Conan the Barbarian. It's fucking badass. It's a real sword as well. It's like well heavy and sharp. Necrob, is there much Drukhari in the Heresy books? I'm not sure. I'm actually not sure. I imagine they probably pop up at some point, but I'm not sure. It's Gavu we need in the chat. Gav's like got an encyclopedic knowledge of Warhammer. Gav knows everything. Has it got leather wrap? Yeah, it's got a scabbard. It's got a scabbard. The scabbard's on the floor over there. It's fucking sick. Slam King, just want to say you're so good at narrating these books. Oh, well, I'm glad you're enjoying it because I love reading them. Love reading them. They're so sick. And I love this book. This book's fucking badass. So. The bastard sword. Bastard sword's a hand and a half sword, isn't it? Where is it? I mean, get two hands on that. I don't think it's quite a great sword. Maybe it is a bastard sword. But it's a big boy. Look at that bastard. Look at that bastard. Even got my logo engraved on it and everything. The best thing I own this. My favorite thing that I own. It's literally my favorite thing that I own. I've wanted one for years and years and years and years and years. And then I finally got one. So good. Yeah, it's heavy. Yeah, it weighs a fucking ton. It's really heavy. I got it sharpened as well, so it's fucking sharp as fuck. Oh, right, guys. Well, Jack normally he sleeps with it at night. Yeah, while it's in the scabbard, though. You know what I mean? Shadow, why aren't they working? My emoji art, man. I don't know. Why is it not working? It just looks like... Oh, it is. I can see it. I can see it in the chat. Is it supposed to be Peppy the Frog? Is it Peppy the Frog? Yeah, I can see it in my chat. I can see it. I knew what it was straight away. What's the sword's name? Queechy. We haven't named the sword yet. That's something we can do on a stream. We can vote for the name of the sword. Do you know what I mean? Should we see who's online? And if we can... Who can we raid? Singer of Tesseract's on. He's playing Silent Hill 2. We could raid him. So let me double check and make sure it's not just fucking subscribers only. No, it's not subscribers only. Yeah, Bash was well chuffed, weren't he? That was great. Yeah, Bash was proper chuffed. Oh, look. Let's do it. All right, let's raid. Hang on. Let's raid the singer from Tesseract. And What's he on? DM. Tesseract. Is that right? Have I spelled that right? All right, right. We're gonna raid Singing from Tesseract. Tell him the Slam King sent yous, and post him some Steven Seagal emotes. Oh no, do that one. What Chaka said. Spam my head. Spam my fucking face. Because why not? All right. If you're new to the stream, before I go, if you haven't already joined our Discord, please do join our Discord. We've got an amazing community of people. It's growing every single week. Everybody's super, super lovely. Megan's just dropped the link in the chat. So click that link, make some new friends. And I will speak to you in the Discord, and I will see you all tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. UK time for some fucking Baldur's Gate 3, and we'll catch up with Paul Queechy and the gang. All right, there we go. There we go. We got 16 viewers. Let's see how many people we can get. We're going to raid Singing from Tesseract, and he is playing Silent Hill 2. So I will see you all tomorrow. I'll speak to you in the Discord. Massive love. Mwah. Peace and love, guys. Love yous. Bye-bye now.